Nelson Show on Washington, D.C.'s 1450 WOL radio and live around the world on WOLDCnews.com.
And thank you for checking with us, folks. We hope Tuesday has been productive for you so far. Later, one of our power talkers, Dr. Claud Anderson, will be here. We like to refer to Dr. Anderson as the man with a plan. He's the only person that we know of that has a comprehensive economic plan for Black America. And Dr. Anderson is going to weigh in on the immigration issue and more. But before we get to Dr. Anderson, Dr. Donald Evans is here. Dr. Evans is the founder of the National African American Family Union. Dr. Evans, welcome back to WOL Radio.
Well, Carl, it's a pleasure and a blessing to be back with you and know that we are all still standing, and that's the blessing that we've been given to bring our families together. So That's what I'm about. I'm a family man with a family movement, bringing us together in order for us to do the things that we've been blessed to do. So it's always a blessing to be on with you, Carl, and we certainly want to thank Sister Hughes for making it possible for us to communicate, because you and I go back. And I'm a little bit ahead of you because I'm 90 now, and I tell people I'm grown and I'm dangerous.
Well, that's a blessing for a Black man to live on this planet for 90 years, because some of our young people can't make it. So that is indeed a blessing, Dr. Evans. Thank you for being here for us all these years. You've often said that the Black family is the key to the survival of the Black community. Can you explain that to our audience, why you believe so?
Well, not only do I believe so, it's why I know so. I mean, that's where our strength is. Our strength is in our families. And when our Creator created us, He brought us here in a family. Our government was already here. Our church was already here. Our religion was already here. It was in the love of our family that was waiting on us to get here. And you didn't hit the ground when you came. You fell into loving hands and right into loving arms. And all of that, when you put that together, that makes up a community, or makes up a congregation and a church, you put a mighty force together. We are the strongest people on this planet. And it is because of our behavior we nullify that strength. But by us coming together, everything that we need is in that coming together of the families of the Black man and the Black woman on this planet. There's no economics that we get. Oh, yes.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt you. But Dr. Evans, there was a time when the Black family as a unit was always there. In my generation, everyone that I knew up, they had mother and father in the homes. And then somehow I guess it was maybe the generation afterwards, it changed. We had all these single parent families going out. The family just sort of disintegrated. Is there any one thing that you can put your finger on that caused that change?
I would have to say it was that attack on the family. It was the outside forces that brought about the change. Nothing within caused the change. I mean, it wasn't anything that we set up on ourselves that we did that caused the change. There's no better example than what's going on right now to give you the example of what that pressure can do to you, because it causes really a lot of us to go crazy whenever that pressure come on us, because we are not looking at ourselves as a family. They're not attacking the family per se. They're attacking all of us that are Black. So I would have to say, Carl, it has a lot to do with how capitalism manipulates us. The government of the United States of America, the laws that they pass. Because if you Google and ask Google to tell you, is there any Black laws that have been put on the book by the Black man and the Black woman that other people have to live by in the United States of America? And Google will probably go crazy by doing everything but telling you right out flat, no. Everything that is on the books, the laws that are on the books are designed for the ones that are writing the laws to be able to do what they do to you that are subservient to the laws. So I would say it is what was done to us periodically. Well, to give you a good example is that we gave up our infrastructure in order to weigh into integration. when it wasn't really integration that we were asking for. We were asking for equalization of everything that the laws provided, or what all of our taxes provide. And we weren't getting that. And I know we weren't getting, because when I was a little boy, we could even get the school board to give us our monies, our allotment of funds, in order to buy the fuel that was needed to keep those pot-bellied stoves running in the classroom, so the boys would go out and hustle the wood to feed the stoves, and the girls would be getting warmer and wiser. And they wonder why girls succeed more than boys in college and all this kind. There are reasons for that, because the black man is the most powerful brain on this planet. So I would say it's because of how we were manipulated to do the things that we do, Claud. Not the black family itself, but the destructive forces that come against the black family.
So let me ask you this then, because I think it was, back in the 60s, during the civil rights era, you mentioned you've been around 90 years now on this planet, so you were there in the 60s, in the 50s and the 60s, when Dr. King and his movements, and this is a King Week, Dr. King was going for integration. At that time, just the average person like yourself, did you support that move, or did you understand that sitting beside a person who looks different from you was not going to solve our problems?
Well, at that particular time, when integration was being shied for, I myself wasn't wanting no integration. Even when I was in the military, I wasn't asking for it. And right at the time when integration did occur, when the executive orders was issued to integrate the military, I didn't want to live in the barracks with no white people. That was right at the time I got married and lived off base. I mean, I have never wanted to be integrated with no other ethnicity. I'm talking about me. I was born and raised in Ryerson, Arkansas. And it was made plain to me that I was not wanted in their ethnicity. And they have many ways of showing it, even to the lynchings and that I'm aware of. So I'm saying this, Claud, to tell you that integration occurred when they were integrated in the schools. They came to my house. I had just came back from overseas with my family, and my family had been going to school already in integrated schools. But they came and they took our smartest students out of our classrooms and took them across town on the buses to the white school, but they never brought one white child out of there over to our schools. In other words, they closed our schools down. They didn't even want their children in our schools. So that wasn't integration. That was a one-way street, and integration should have been a two-way street. So I'm saying all of this, Claud, is that no, I was not supportive of it. I mean, I didn't object to it, and I would not, not do anything that Dr. King was attempting to do. I couldn't be a part of that because, when Dr. Bevel and the rest of them was teaching you how to behave nonviolently, I knew that I would not have been able to do that. If somebody was spitting on me or calling me the magic word and walk up and slap me, I'd want to break his jaw. I mean, and I know that wouldn't work because how can you be nonviolent if you're going to be violent? So I wasn't supportive of all of that. I was supportive of Dr. King.
Well, let me interrupt you for a second here, Dr. Evans, because it seems that people nowadays seem to blame Dr. King for the integration process. It's like he made this decision all of it by himself. And I know there were people who were behind him who said, hey, we need to have the same schools or be in the same schools and be able to shop where they shop and eat where they eat and sleep in the same hotels where they sleep. I know a lot of people were pushing for that, and they approval of it. But it seems like, as the years went by, and many people saw that didn't take care of our issues, our problems. If anything, it just made them worse. They said, well, Dr. King made the wrong turn. But I know you were there, so that's what I'm asking you. What was the feeling like in your circle of friends? Did they feel that Dr. King was on the right track at that time? Now, not afterwards. Did they support him what he was doing, or they say, hey man, he's wrong. We don't need integration. We need to build our own structure, our own community.
there was no wide following of Dr. King or Malcolm X. Every time Dr. King came into town, or when he was coming into town, he had to almost rally the audience that he's going to get into town. But they were not followers of Dr. King. When I say we were not followers, when Dr. King went out of town, a lot of the fervor that was in the church when you jumping up saying amen, because that was one of the greatest speakers that this nation has produced, was Dr. King. I say this, Carl. What Dr. King was asking for wasn't integration. It wasn't for permission to come in and sit down at a lunch counter and eat with white people. That wasn't what Dr. King was shooting for. Dr. King was shooting for the equal treatment of his people. And the way that he had to go out, the tactic that he used was nonviolent. You, and I'm sure everybody else that listens to my voice, know that not only would they have beat us and kicked us and spit on us and put us in jail and did all of those things, if we had any kind of way came across as nonviolent, they would have been.
Hang on a second, Dr. Evans. We've got to take a quick break here. We've got to check the traffic and weather. Get us an update for our listeners in the Washington, D.C. area. Folks, you too can join our discussion with Dr. Donald Evans. Reach out to us, 800-450-7876. Take your calls after the traffic and weather update on FM 95.9 and AM 1450, WOL, where information is power. Thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Dr. Donald Evans. He's the founder of the National African American Family Reunion. The group is dedicated to keeping the black family intact. In fact, Dr. Evans says he knows that the survival of the black community is predicated on a tight family unit, and that structure has changed. We'll talk about that in a moment. Before we left, Dr. Evans, I'll let you finish your thought about what happened with Dr. King.
What I'm saying, and I hope everyone will understand, that Dr. King used that nonviolent tactic of bringing change to this society. And nobody is going to willingly want to stick their head under no billy club that Bull Connors, or whatever his name was, and his police, Gestapos, was out there to beat you down on. I mean, that's not logical, and Dr. King was certainly a logical person. But there had to be a way of doing it in order not to get his people killed. And nonviolence was that. He went through that in order to bring the change that would get equal rights, jobs, and all of that would keep a man home where he could work 8 hours a day and come back home to his family, not have to leave his family and go all over the country looking for work. Dr. King wanted to stop all of that in order to strengthen the family. Dr. King was a family man, raised in a very strong family. And he knew the value of family. And all that Dr. King did, you could misunderstand that, because a lot of people thought that Dr. King was a wimp, that the brother didn't have manhood. Dr. King was one of the most manly men that I have ever witnessed in my life. I know for a fact that I don't have the strength in me, and never did have the strength in me, to follow Dr. King and went through all of those followers that was around him went through. So I don't want anybody to say anything against Dr. King in my presence when you misunderstand what he is, because we have a very, very bad habit in our behavior. We had a black president in there for 8 years, and we went to sleep at the wheel the whole time he was in there. Now everybody want to throw rocks at him. When those individuals that was already there in Washington, D.C., was in a meeting at the time when he's holding up his hand being sworn in and having to whisper to the head of the Supreme Court the words that he's supposed to use to swear him in. That's how brilliant the man was. And everybody thinks that he didn't do anything for us, just like they misinterpreted Dr. King. They misinterpreted Obama. Obama would have did much more that he could have had we given him the platform to stand on. But we didn't do anything but go to sleep at the wheel. We want him to do everything like now. We want Jesus Christ to bless us, to bring change, and we don't want to do nothing but sit on our behind and wait for Jesus Christ to show up to activate the change. I mean, come on.
Well, let me jump in here for a second because you mentioned change. Now the family unit, the family structure in this country, I guess in the world, has changed now. And what I'm referring to is that the homosexual idea now is that you've got two men and rearing children, and they say that's a family. That's constitutes a family. I'm just wondering your thoughts as for the black family, for your group, the National African American Family Union. Do you guys consider gays, the two gays who have children or are rearing children, do you consider that a family unit as well?
That question that you're bringing up is a very divisive subject. If you have a family member that is born, that has a peculiarity or whatever you wish to call it, that is different from the rest of the family, that does not change the fact that that person is a member of your family, and that should be dealt with as a family. Whenever you start to legislate and stuff that go on in people's bedrooms and all of that, you drift away from what we should be focusing on, and that is the strengthening of the family so that the family can deal with that, so the community can deal with it. But whenever we get into government and it started playing politics with all of that, it takes us away from what it is. We have to stay focused to bring change. First of all, before we start trying to heal the family, we should at least get the family together. If you got somebody in the family that's on drugs, drugs is a more dangerous force than homosexuality will ever be. But why is the drugs there? Why are the guns available for our children to get their hands on it? Why should it be that easy for children to get their hands on it? All of these things we have to deal with. So I don't want to take it away from my focus by doing something that's a very powerful subject that you're dealing with there. And we need our doctors, we need our churches, we need everybody in the conversation when you're talking about it. No one person is going to give you the answer to whatever is going on inside of the family. That's a family unit. That's why it's called a family unit.
And Dr. Evans, you mentioned the church, and the black church gets blasted at times for not doing enough for our people. How do you feel the black church, have they done enough? Is there more they can do? If so, what can they do? What more can they do to keep the black family together as a unit?
Carl, when you ask me the black church, let me say this, audience, and please understand me. I'm here telling you that we need to come together as families so that we can do this and we can do that. Who do you think I'm talking about when I say family? The black church is one of our houses in the black family. Our home is a church also. Our home is a school. That's the reason why right now this man that is talking to you is trying to get us to homeschool. Listen to me. Homeschool the family around the dinner table. That's the only place in the United States of America that we have enough space and places to teach our families what we need to teach them. Is around the dinner table. Otherwise, you're never going to get to the family members that need to be taught change.
And you know what? It's interesting that you would say that, Dr. Evans, because around the dinner table, that's where discussions are made, and a lot of times as a family unit, we just don't sit down at the dinner table and have dinner and discuss issues. How was your day? Usually that's reserved now for just Sundays because people are working, going to school, and they're passing like ships in the night each day. So there are the different schedules. So what does your group propose? Where that missing that sit down meal where you can discuss family issues, if it's not happening at the dinner table, when should that happen?
If we can't do it inside of the home, and you're talking about the family, if we're not doing it in the church, and you say, where can we do it? I will say this, and I will stand on it. We're not going to do it. It isn't going to happen. I'm telling you now, when I'm talking about getting the families to come together and be stronger, who is it that makes up the congregation if it isn't the families? What do y'all think I'm talking about? I'm talking about one and the same thing. How are we going to heal the behavior of the church if you think the behavior of the church is not correct? When you change the behavior of the family, you have already affected the behavior of the church, because that's who's making up the congregations is our families. And we have to look at ourselves holistically. We can't look at ourselves individually. This is a holistic approach that I'm talking about. And when I teach holistically. You can't even raise the money that I'm talking about raising. I'm talking about raising a perpetual fund into the billions in order for us to pay our way out of poverty. We have been praying ever since we came out of physical slavery. And there is nothing wrong with praying. Our prayers have been answered because God has kept us strong and have multiplied us. And now we are 40 million strong plus. So I want you to understand that I am talking about the church. If I could change and heal the families and the behaviors of the family toward other families, and we come together as families and look at ourselves as a 40 million family. Everything that we need is in us. Everything that we need is in us. Our God is in us. Our wealth is in us. And when we're talking about bringing it up from the bottom up, instead of waiting for somebody like an Oprah Winfrey to give up you the money that she has struggled to make herself, we're not begging her for a penny. But we are asking that if you can see, Oprah, that we are bringing it up from the bottom, that we are uniting ourselves from the bottom, and we are strong enough now not to misuse your investment. If you invest in your people, we will grow your money like you never imagined that could come out of your people. That's what I'm talking about.
You know, I know we're coming up on a break real soon, but some people have criticized her, says she doesn't do enough for the black community, but she does quite a bit. She just doesn't advertise when she's doing it. What do you think you need to say to the people who not necessarily have Oprah's money, because not a lot of us are even in that group, but a lot of people are in between? What do you say about the people who you'd like to especially donate to your cause, help you, because your cause is keeping the black family intact, and I know you need funds to do that. You got to make a picture. Then what would you say? And I'll tell you what, we got to take this short break, as I promised. I'll let you answer the question on the other side. But again, the question is, what would you say to them if you could speak to them face to face right now and say that you're in favor of keeping the black family intact, you need some help, and you need them to help you? I want you to tell the audience, what would you say to them? As I mentioned, we got to take a quick break, and we'll be back with Dr. Evans. Folks, you too can join the discussion with Dr. Evans. Reach out to us. We're at 800-450-7876. We'll take your calls after this short break on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power. And thanks for rolling with us, folks. Our guest is Dr. Donald Evans. He's the founder of the National African American Family Reunion. Dr. Evans' group believes that the unit, the black family as a unit, is key to the survival of the black community. He says we lost it all, and the backdrop in this is that 7% of black families now headed by a single female head of household. I think it's like 75 or 78. That was the last census figure. So we obviously got to do something about that. And if we're not as a unit, we can't perform, or there's no stability. If you don't have a family unit, you don't have a community. You don't have a community. That's where it all starts for us. So, but Dr. Evans, I'm going to let you respond to the question I asked right before the break. Your thoughts?
My thing is that for those that will speak negative whenever we are trying to do the work that some of us are out here attempting to do to bring our families together, if you are not willing to put in the work to bring change, to look for the positive things that we can do to help bring our families together, you should keep your mouth closed and stand aside and let those who understand the blessings that we have been given to bring change to our families, because without bringing the change to the family, we can't cure any of the problems within the family. So don't speak negative of us. We know that you have been conditioned to think the way that you are thinking. You have been miseducated, Dr. Carter G. Woodson, and many, many, many adults that I ask don't even know who this man is, as long as he's been around 80-something years that book has been on the market. And they don't even know about Amos Wilson, Blueprint for Black Power. Powerful books that we need to read in order to have the tools to bring our families together. Don't talk negative.
So, but you need to sell them a convincing reason why the black, because many of them who've got money, they're not facing the issues that we're facing. You know, rich people's got rich people problems, but folks who are out there who can help your group. Why would they help the black? And we've had this discussion before that, you know, the bourgeoisie have had with Dr. Frances West Welsing, and she said, stop beating up on the bourgeoisie. But, you know, some people think they can do more to help a group like yours, who's grassroots, trying to keep the black family structure together. What would you say to them? What argument can you use to convince them to write that check?
Well, for one thing, it's the same thing I tell those that stick against the church. We don't need to fight with our ministers. We need to be strong everywhere we turn. We don't need to give anybody an opening to drive a wedge deeper into us to keep us divided. We don't need to fight among ourselves. We need to not talk negative about something that you don't want to put any time in to understand and give us your strength. When I was at the original Million Man March, Minister Louis Farrakhan of the Nation of Islam gave us an order and said, when you leave here, go back home. If you're not already in an organization, find an organization to get into, find a church to join, find a mosque to join, but find an organization to join that you can get in and work to strengthen the community. If you can't find that within the community, don't go around talking negative about the community. Create the organization and build it up to do what you think it should be doing in order to help our people. That's how the National African American Family Reunion Association came into being. I tried everything that I possibly could. I joined various churches. I would want to teach the children. I would work 10-hour nights and then be there on Saturday to teach the children. But the families would let the children sit up playing and looking at television till wee hours of the morning, and the children would be sleeping while I'm sitting at the church waiting for them to come in so I could teach them. That's going on all over Black folk America, these kind of things that weaken us. The ones that get to be my age can't teach because those younger than us that didn't get the teaching, they push back against you. You talking that black stuff. I said, yes, I am. You're very correct. But that black stuff is you. If you don't understand it, then you need to listen and not criticize. We have been told by Dr. Hilliard that in order for us to bring change when we're talking about education, we have got to do our homework. Homework. We got to study. That would be my answer. All
right. Thank you for that answer. We've got some folks who want to speak to you. 800-450-7876. Speak to Dr. Evans. Dewan is calling us from D.C. Dewan's on line one. Dewan, you're on with Dr. Evans.
Hi, yes. I just was listening to him. I just came in like in the last 15, 20 minutes. But I hope people are listening to what he's saying, because everything I've heard this man say is what I believe we need to hear as Black people. Like, he is totally addressing issues that I see all the time. What he was saying with Martin Luther King, what he was saying is how they turned their back on Barack Obama, on President Obama. I'm just so thankful to hear somebody being so direct and forward, because I think that so for some reason Black people are lost and confused, and I don't understand why, but I'm just glad to hear somebody trying to tell them where they should be, where their thought process should be, what actions they should be taking. I'm just thankful for this show today, because I just came in listening, but everything I've heard is very inspirational, and I hope people are hearing what he's saying and not saying, I don't need nobody to tell me what to do, whatever. this is the word right here that we need to be hearing. And I'm thanking you for bringing him into this platform.
All right. Thanks, Dewan. Dr. Evans, you want to respond to what she just said?
Sister, I appreciate you coming on because I draw inspiration whenever I hear somebody out there, even if it's just one voice from the wilderness. I know that there are others just like you that feel the passion in my voice. And when you were speaking, I lost a spiritual daughter in New Orleans just as the year was going out and my 90th birthday was coming up on me. President Obama's got the aunt of the person that was killed out of prison. The one that was in prison for 3 life sentences plus 20 years because she was married to a man that was being charged with attempt to market 5 kilos of cocaine and was given 3 life sentences plus 20 years for it. The reason why I'm telling you this is that she was killed. This niece of the one that President Obama got out of prison, the one that had 3 life sentences plus 20 years in the state of Louisiana, out of the city of New Orleans. He got her out. He pardoned her. She's back home in New Orleans now. She called me and said, Dr. Evans, I know you don't want to hear what I'm going to tell you, but my oldest niece has been killed. Well, the young man that was driving the car was shot dead right there on the spot. She died 3 days later when they put her on life support, but her body had been willed to science, and the family didn't know that. So when the people came to get the organs out of her body, that's when the family found out that she had signed up for her body to be donated to science. Before a week was out, the organs out of her body had saved 7 people on the donor list. That's how quick God moves to turn a negative into a positive. It hurt me so bad that I got in my car and drove to New Orleans. Everybody was worried about me driving down there by myself, and I said, no, I won't be by myself, because the God I see in my mind and the Jesus I feel in my heart would be present in my car. I don't have no room for no Negroes in my car. It ain't doing nothing but talking a lot of bull, and I'm in pain. I'm telling you this because when that young lady was speaking, I could hear the voice of my spiritual great-granddaughter that was killed in New Orleans. And I'm doing everything I can to heal that city because she was killed by a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old that stopped their car and shot both of them down and then ran off. There was a 6-year-old baby sleeping in the back seat, and the noise woke him up, and he saw his mommy wasn't in the car. By the time he got out of the car, walked around the car, Mama was laying in a pool of blood. We are doing these things to one another because those boys should be in the program that we are fighting out here now to get on. And I sent Brother Carl some stuff, but he didn't have time to look at it before he came on the air because some of the things that I sent him is on T-shirts. The message is on the T-shirt. I'm not trying to sell T-shirts. I'm trying to get that message across about us being family. Everything that I talk about is our family and how we must behave as family. How are we going to tell our Jesus that we know the other Jesus is not our Jesus, but how are you going to tell your Jesus when you're not behaving like you really believe that your Jesus has power? If you think you know the power of your Jesus now, you let us come together in the numbers that I'm talking about, in the godly numbers that I'm talking about, and you see our markets come home, and we can market into our number. We can open our own banks. We'd be banking for our black. We don't have to have anybody else's bank. Black Wall Street didn't have it, and that was only a town. If we were 40 million, if we were really 40 million, I mean, like, come on, people. We got it to do, and we don't have no time for no negativity. For those of you that wish to speak negatively, like I said, keep your mouth closed and step aside. We will come back and do everything that we possibly can to get the black man out of that Negro image.
Hold that thought right there, Doc. We got to take another break and check the traffic and weather in the DMV. I'll let you finish your thought on the other side. And also talk about the incarceration rate amongst our young people. 800-450-7876. Get you want to speak to Dr. Evans. We'll take your calls next as the big show rolls on from FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power. Thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Dr. Donald Evans. He's the founder of the National African American Family Reunion Association, and the number to call to speak to him is 800-450-7876. But before we get back to him, let me remind you some of the other folks are going to be stopping by in the next few days. Dr. B, a metaphysician, is going to join us. Also, educator, griot in our community, Dr. James Small will be here. And later today, you're going to hear from the man with a plan. That's what we like to call him, Dr. Claud Anderson. So tell your friends out there to lock it in. If you're driving around the DMV area, we're on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. And also, if you're listening around town, around the country, I should say, we're at WOLDCnews.com, and you know all the various ways that you can pick up the station and take it with you as well. Dr. Evans, my question to you is, when you first came across my radar, you and a fellow by the name of Nathaniel Ali, and you were working with some of the brothers and I guess some of the sisters too who were incarcerated, because many a times folks have relatives that have been in jail or been in prison, and they throw them out of their lives forever. But somehow you and Brother Ali were out there trying to get to help these young folks who may have made a wrong turn in life and help them straighten themselves out once they get out. What motivated you to do that?
Well, long story short, Carl, I was married to a lady whose grandchildren, she would take to church with them every Sunday morning. And this Sunday morning she was running late, so she asked me to pick the children up and bring them to the church while she would finish dressing. And she would already be there at the church. So I went by the apartment where her daughter lived to pick the children up. And when I got there, their father was there. And that was the first time that I had met him. And the daughter, my wife's daughter, introduced me to her husband. And I said, well, you've been away. You have a job out of town or something? To make a long story short, he said, no, I didn't. I was incarcerated. I said, oh, so you're out now and you're home with your family. I said, I came to pick your children up to take them to church. I said, could you slip on a jacket and come on and ride with me? I'd like to talk with you some more about that. I said, I have a prison minister, and I'm interested in what your behavior was when you were behind bars and blah, blah, blah. So he said, no, I don't want to go to church. And I said, you don't want to go to church? I said, I just got through saying I'm taking your children to church. And you don't think you should go wherever your children are going? If it's good enough for them, it's not good enough for you? He said, no, it's just that they don't preach and do nothing for me when I was incarcerated and all this. And I said, hold it a minute, brother, hold it. I said, do you have a mother and father? He said, yes, I do. I said, do they go to church? He said, well, I'm sure they do. I said, well, why haven't you told your mother and father? Why haven't you even told your wife? Would you contact a pastor and have that pastor to contact us that are in the mindset I'm in and see if we can get that pastor to come down to the church or come down to the prison where you were incarcerated? I said, I have done that, but it's only Muslims that invite me to go, and I'm a Christian. So he said, well, anyway, I don't want to do that. I said, well, brother, you're confusing me. I really wish you would just do this for me. I'd like to talk to you man to man. No, I don't want to go. I told you that. I said, well, okay. I want to take your children off. I have your permission. You're the man in the house now. You're home. And he said, yeah, go ahead and take them. It's all right by me. So I took the children. I left, and I was 30 minutes late in getting there. And naturally, my wife was upset, and I said, well, you didn't tell me that I was going to run into your son-in-law. And she said, oh, he's home? I said, yes, he's very much home. I tried to get him to come here with me, but he didn't. Anyway, to make a long story short, after service was over, I did go back over there. I sat down and said, why are you so adamant toward the pastors in the church? I said, how are they supposed to know you here when there are thousands of you behind bars? What is so important about you? I said, you the one got yourself in prison one way or the other. You were doing something that got the attention of the people that could put you in prison. Whether you were guilty or not, I'm not saying. But you were evidently closer doing something that got you in prison. So how they suppose, what made you special? And he said, well, I just think that, I said, yeah, you tell me what you think. I said, but I don't see nothing special about you, to tell you the truth myself. Man to man, I asked you, I wanted to have a man-to-man conversation with. I said, one thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to say anything to make you feel good by lying to you. I said, you have children. You're the father of these children that I took to church. And you married the woman there that's been coming and bringing sex to you because you had conjugal visit rights. I asked your mother-in-law when I got back. I was trying to find out why you have such a stiff neck against preachers. And we got to be very good friends. And I asked him, would you give me the address of somebody that is still there that think like you? I would like to write to them. Carl, that's how this prison minister that I have been with, and Brother Ali, my spiritual son that has transitioned, was with me for over 20 years. That's how it was born. It was born out of that conversation.
Wow. That's interesting because, a lot of people, and we've had, I'm not sure if you remember Malik Spellman. He's working with a gang interventionist, and he does the kind of thing that you're doing, but he usually deals with the brothers and sisters once they get out. And in fact, I had a person incarcerated who called me today. They've got my phone number. They listen to us. They've got various means of communicating. Some of them have cell phones. So he called me today from prison, and they listen to us each and every day. And it seems like for the rest of society, they've forgotten about these brothers and sisters. I know some of them, you might as well say all of them made a wrong turn. Some are in there, and some will probably say they were innocent. But their families there, and this is what Malik was telling me, their families, Dr. Evans, really turn their backs on these gentlemen and ladies once they make that wrong turn, once they're incarcerated. They don't reach out to them. It's holidays and stuff like that. They don't understand what they're going through, so they think that's part of the punishment. I just want to get your thoughts on all of that.
I have an intense program right now called Trying to Get All Families that have family members incarcerated throughout the United States of America to identify themselves and stop feeling that they themselves have done something that they need to be ashamed of, or they have done something that they need to be guilty about, and all of that. That is not the case with the families. That's what I'm talking about now, about healing the families. My thing is that we, in order to fight functional and cultural illiteracy behind bars, in order for us to fight the schools that go on in there to teach them how to be better criminals, so when they come out, they're going to do damage, not out there in white society, they're going to do damage in their own communities. And so they're going to do damage to the families and bring more hurt to the families. My prison ministry treats all of that. Right now, I've had another one of our directors of National Association of Brothers and Sisters in and out. Mike Chatham went down, and now I have another prison minister that is the director, and he's in the men's colony in Chino, California. And I'm looking forward to him getting out soon. And he's very strong. And all of the things that I'm telling you are what we are trying to get in the minds of our young men in the prisons and young ladies before they come out, is that we have jobs for them out here waiting on them if they're young enough. We have created the Black American Amateur Economic Sports Alliance. That's a sports alliance from Los Angeles to New York, from Tacoma to Miami, and Dallas as the hub. And Amateur Economic Sports Alliance that we own. Sports, amateur sports, the same way the National Football League is and the National Basketball League is. We are the ones that cause billionaires that own sports franchises to become billionaires by us going to their stadium and supporting it because our sons and daughters is in sports, entertaining them. But it doesn't change the condition of our families. This amateur alliance is organized for that point. And right now, I am doing everything that I can to bring it together. The families will own that. Please understand what I said. The families will own this. All of the memorabilia and everything that go along with the sports that we generate, you will not be able to buy this at Walmart. You will have to get it from the family outlet stores that a family member is running, and the family members will be making their living out of that store. Will be able to send their children to college. All of these things we'll be able to do so the children can come back home without any debt and market into this number. I am telling you, we got to bring together in order for us to get out of the situation that we're in from the bottom up. Do I want Oprah? Do I want Bob Roberts, whatever his name is, Dr. Dre, Russell Simmons? Do I want their money? No, I don't want their money. Do I want them to invest? Yes, I want Snoop and the rest of the brothers that's got deep pockets. Snoop's even got a football league there in Los Angeles already. I'm asking them to come into the alliance so that we can join up all over this nation and get our children off the streets. That's primarily my thing, because I'm still hurting about those two young boys down there in New Orleans that killed my spiritual daughter. They should not have been available to do that. They should not have guns in it.
Right. Let me interrupt you and ask you this, though, because you've done a lot, and you're still doing a lot. You're 90 years young, and you keep soldiering on and for our community. What keeps you going? I mean, men of lesser age than you who probably haven't done anything, probably won't even do anything for our community. Wouldn't even consider. And those who are in the struggle, they've given up and thrown their hat in and walked away a long time ago. I want to know what keeps you going.
I'll tell you what keeps me going. Sitting here on my couch in the living room, there's a flag flying over the high school, John F. K. High School here in Mount Bayou, Mississippi, one of the oldest black spots in America. And I look at that flag every day, and I see the wind moving it around and seeing it blowing. When I was drafted in the Second World War, I stayed in for 26 years. 26 years. I became a man. I was a boy in a man's body when I was drafted in the Second World War. And I grew up in the military. I saluted that flag more times than I care to count. My reason for saluting that flag was so Cap could take a knee in protest to keep our young boys and girls from getting killed out on the streets in a peaceful protest. He wasn't desecrating the flag that I salute. So I don't want anyone to even be mystified by why I keep moving and why I keep moving. I love this land. I don't love it for the same reasons by those who came by the Statue of Liberty. My love didn't come by the Statue of Liberty. My love came off the slave blocks in Georgia, Carolina, where my youngest two daughters live right now.
Hold your thought right there, Dr. Evans. Dr. Evans, hold that thought. I'll let you finish it on the other side. We got to take a quick break here so our stations can identify themselves, like FM 95.9 and AM 1450, WOL, where information is power. Thank you for staying with us, folks. Later on, we're going to hear from Dr. Claud Anderson, but right now we're speaking with the founder of the National African American Family Reunion Association. His name is Dr. Donald Evans. He's 90 years young, and he's been in the struggle as long as he can remember. He's still doing it. He's still doing it. And my question before we left for the top of the hour break was why? You know, younger men who have bowed out and said, you know, I can't help these hard-headed ends. I'm through with them. They don't listen, and they're very disappointed and bitter because they feel all their struggle has been in vain. But Dr. Evans is still fighting for us. So my question, I'm going to let you finish, Dr. Evans. Tell us why. What gets you up every day to fight for our people?
It's the love that I have in me for my people, Claud. I love this land that we own. And I love it with such a passion because I realize that the $1 billion administration that we have could not be the billion-dollar administration that they are, were it not for the foundation that our people built, that this country stands on. It's still here. Everybody that comes here, everybody that's already here, with the exception of us, benefit from this foundation. So I ask myself, if I don't speak what I see, if I don't see that we are holding ourselves back from having the wealth that we need, I am in the process of inspiring $1 billion treasury that is only comparable to the treasury of the United States of America and what Black Wall Street was able to put together. Our own money, so that we will be able to not only pray, but to start paying our way out of poverty. I love this land because the blood and the sweat and the tears and the death of our people is in this land. And I started to tell you, we didn't build it by coming by the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty that was first offered was a black woman and had her slave chains at her feet. But the rulers of this society did not want that. They want a Statue of Liberty that looked like them. They had a right to do that. They were in power. I'm not arguing anything against that. What I am arguing against is that we ourselves refuse to honor those of us who have already paid the pain. They paid the pound of blood. They paid all of that. So our children that came after them would not have to do that. I am standing here to tell you, I do not want black children, America, to feel all of that pain and suffering that our people went through. That debt has already been paid. I want to teach these children. We had it to Jubilee. We had it to Liberation. If we headed to liberation, we need to be dropping it like it's hot, and we need to be dancing like that field that I was in for my spiritual daughter down there in New Orleans. I didn't know what in the world I was caught up in. People are dancing and singing and going to a funeral. The horses is pulling the body. And they explained to me that I was caught up in a very, very cultural statement. That's who we are as a people. There is no other people on this planet is as colorful and as beautiful as we are. Nowhere. And we behave the way that we behave. That has to stop. That's the reason why I tell you, I will not tolerate negativity. The man that you say is coming on, the man with the plan, Dr. Claud Anderson. I know Dr. Anderson. I knew him when he was trying to show us what we could do in Inglewood. And he created something. I even bought some of the stock for my great-grandchildren. And do you know he couldn't get enough of us in Los Angeles, California, with the population of black people there, to understand what Dr. Anderson was bringing to us? What if I had been there ahead of him to get this perpetual fund that I have been given by the blessings of the Almighty that I see in my mind? A young man named Gary Starks out of Tuskegee Institute will be coming out in May, has accepted the management of our perpetual fund. And he wants to drop his briefcase in Dallas, Texas. I will be moving back to Dallas, Texas from Mount Bayou in order to build him the headquarters that he wants our financial system to be out of, because he wants an office in Los Angeles too. His mother is in Los Angeles and his father, if he's still alive, is there also. And I'm telling you these things because we have a young man whose brain is a financial brain. My brain is not a financial brain. My brain is organized. And I don't think there's any in the United States of America that you can stack up against me that I won't have an answer for. Because I will not back up. I will get in your face in a minute if you say anything that is derogatory toward my people. That's the reason why I'm so hurt. How can I teach black children to be respectful of the presidency? And the presidency called their mothers bitches. That makes my job harder because I got to explain to them what is wrong with this man. Why would he say a thing like that? And I tell them, listen to me, and I will tell you about one that love you, and will tell you that I will deal with that one. You deal with learning who I am and follow what your elders are teaching you, and don't be separated from your elders. I love this land, Carl. My family is here. And for anyone that attacked you, you're attacking my family.
And you know what, we get that, Dr. Evans, but what about, we look at the person in the White House right now and the disgusting things the 45 has said about our people. And somehow, for the young people, when they hear this kind of stuff, they can't look the other way. Many of them won't look the other way. So what do you tell them, and how do we deal with what's coming out of the White House these days?
I wouldn't lie to them, Carl. The first thing I would do is tell them the truth. I would say that he's talking to his base, and I would understand who his base is. His base is a group of people in the United States of America that would put every one of us that's black in ovens the same way those Germans did to the Jews. And I would explain that to them. They're right here walking around you every day. But they are not the ones that is the most dangerous to you and what it is that we're trying to do. It's the slave masters in your mind now that is bringing the damage to you. The slave masters in your mind. There is a young lady, and I call her young because she ain't nowhere near my age. Her name is Ethel Kane Russell. She's getting ready to launch a campaign of change out of Jackson, Mississippi in February. I'm telling you this, keep your eyes and ears on Jackson, Mississippi, where Chokwe Lumumba was just elected mayor. There are some things coming out of Mississippi that will let the rest of the nation know the change is in our hands, and we're bringing it to you out of the state of Mississippi. And this sister is one of the sisters that's the same as Queen Nzinga. When she had to speak to the rulers of Portugal about her people. But this one is doing the same thing. Keep your eyes and ears open. I will try to get Claud to put her on his show before February so she can speak for herself, because believe me, she's capable of doing every bit of that. So, Claud, it's my love for my people, my love for this land, my love for those who have paid the price for us to build on what they have put here, for us to accumulate wealth from the bottom up. And we are in the process of doing that. We have no criticism of those who already have the money, but I am asking them, keep your eyes on it. And when you see opportunity to franchise, that's how McDonald's and those places got there. We want you to put your money, send your lawyers, send your investigators down here to see who we are and what we are talking about. That's the kind of change it's time to do. And sisters know this before Paul tells me it's time for this old man to get off there. I want your sisters to understand. We are coming after that hair market. And when I said we, I'm talking about black people. I'm talking about this movement, this family movement. We're coming after all of our markets that belong to us. I had a Muslim brother to tell me that a catfish is a scavenger. I said, yes, he is. If you're in the Mississippi River, you have to fall in the Mississippi River. But if I take him out and put him under a roof and put a tank in there and raise him in the tank, is he a scavenger or is he a catfish? I want our people to eat healthier. So I have to think, how can I make that happen? When I have a young sister to come in contact with me that knows that she has a system she has put together, she wants you to know about it, I want her to be in a position to tell you about it. That's the reason why I'm asking Carl if he will have time between now and the 1st of February to put her on the air and let her speak for herself. And y'all would have all kind of opportunities to find words at her. But what are you doing, sister? Why do you think yours is so great and all of that? And I guarantee you, you'll get an answer. And you'll probably think it's Madam C.J. Walker talking to you.
All right, I'll tell you what, we've got to take a break. We'll see if we can work that out. But we want you to stay with us a little bit longer, Dr. Evans, because I want some more information from you, because the words of wisdom come from you, a person that's been on this planet for 90 years young. So we'll talk to you some more, but we got to take another check of the traffic and weather in the DMV area. Folks, you too can join our discussion with Dr. Donald Evans. Our number is 800-450-7876. We're right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is Dr. Donald Evans. He's the founder of the National African American Family Reunion Association. His group believes that the keeping the family, the black family as a unit, is key to the survival of the black community. And his hands is in several pies trying to make that happen. Dr. Evans, I got to ask you, though, and momentarily, later we're going to speak with Dr. Claud Anderson, but right now we're still going to stick with Dr. Evans. Dr. Evans, we hear some of our young people, because when Barack Obama got elected, they were saying that, that this racism is over. We're in a post-racial society. And then after Donald Trump's election, now they got a wake-up call. What do you say to those young people who seem now disenchanted because they thought we had made it, the racism was gone away because all of a sudden America elected a black man? Now we've got the total opposite in Donald Trump, and they just don't care about politics or elected politics for that matter at all. So what do you say to those young people?
The ones that I've been fortunate enough to address, I tell them that you really need to wake up and understand how you got here. Where did you come from? What was your journey? You didn't come here for the way that the other people that I just mentioned that came by the Statue of Liberty. You came a different path. Your story is a different story. Do you know your story? And that's where the fallacy is that they don't know like their parents don't know. That's one of the things that we have to correct. That's the purpose of homeschooling. We have to teach them their story so that they understand there are certain things going to happen that may puzzle some, but if you should never puzzle the descendants of the slaves that built this foundation that I'm talking about. We should never be puzzled about the behavior of those in power, because they're exercising their power. They don't even see us inside of that power. That's why he can call that negative that he called about Haiti and Africa, some of the African countries. He could say those negative things because he don't see you inside of his power. He don't recognize you as having power. And he's right, we don't have power. We have numbers that we could have leverage power if we came together. All of this we have to explain to the children, Carl. And we are capable of doing it if we want to do our homework and learn what we should be teaching our children.
But you seem to have a way with reaching them that many people don't have, Dr. Evans, because I've seen you at work. Because their parents don't know what you teach them. So what do we do? Do we try to get the parents on board first and then go after the children, or go straight to the children and try to reach them?
We don't have that kind of time, Carl. We don't have that kind of time. That's the reason why I keep saying homeschool the families. We got to bring the families inside of the classroom as a family. Our school has got to become the dinner table. We don't need to be driving up and down the street and seeing brothers in any size number like 10 or 15 sitting around domino tables around these places where they can go in and buy these tall beers and sit around sucking on beer cans until they look like walking zombies and all of that. We have to get to them and say, we need you at home around the table. When Papa said, drop your head, let's have a moment of prayer before we eat. And then the subject gets started. What are we going to talk about today? One of the children may have brought a subject from school that they need to talk about, and they don't understand. What better place for them to understand around the dinner table like other people, like the Jews, the Catholics, and the Mormons, when they're teaching their children. Nobody called them separatists and all of that. But they want to tell us that whatever we want to stop being miseducated and start teaching our children. So I would tell them, Carl, we have got to go to school again. Am I talking about the high school or the grade school? No, I'm talking about the school around that dinner table. All across this America. That has to be the largest university ever put together on the soil of the United States. It's a black man going to school, learning now what they didn't know before. And we, who are grandparents, have to become the liaisons in the churches to work between the organization and the church. Because we have to use the church's system of collecting tithes. We need just that system to collect our dollar donation into a family fund that we are building to take care of the family. This fund is strictly for the family, not for the church. It's for the family. It's not the church's money. It's the family making that dollar donation into this family fund in order for us to start to build an infrastructure, in order for us to start to buy the books that we need from our black publishers. The Dr. Claud Anderson's books, the one that's coming on, the man with the plan. Yes, he does have a plan. And we got the money that we got to put in his hands. I don't want Dr. Anderson to go another year old and not have the monies that he needs, that we are able to raise in this perpetual fund out of that brain that has the stamp of Booker T on it, because he came out of Tuskegee. And it would be an impossibility to graduate from Tuskegee majoring in mathematics and financial management and not have the spirit of Booker T on you. I'm telling you, we're ready to bring change, people. This man is not spouting off at you because he don't know what he's talking about. I have a young brother in this house that is literally a genius with the computer and what it is that he's doing. And he is a church man. He's a God man. And I said that God sent you here and intended for you to be in my house, the God that we see in our minds, because he's just like me. And I'm telling you, make it so easy for me. When time comes for me to transition, I'll walk away with a smile and be ready to go home and take my eternal nap with my ancestors. But I'm going to leave a piece of work behind you that is not going to impose like God's organization did. No, they're going to be here, and they're going to be bringing change every day of their lives. So, Carl, you take a look at what I sent you, and it's the messages on what I sent you that I want you to look at. And I had hoped that I could get it to you in time so that you could ask me about some of the stuff that is on that, because those were like PowerPoint for you to probe my mind.
All right, let me try and take a look at it while we're having this conversation. But before, you said that you've been working with some of the churches so that we can use their buildings, their system to teach on the weekends. How much progress have you made doing that?
I haven't gotten that off the ground, Carl. And I have a church here in Mount Bayou that is cooperating with anything that Dr. Evan does. And the minister has already put it out that there's a minister's meeting that he has, and he said he wants me to come and address them because each one of the churches have a fellowship hall. And whenever I put on an activity like we get out here, the aldermen get out here and take the young men and the young ladies and clean up the community. And then we go to the fellowship hall and have a meal. And I get a chance to talk to them while they're having a meal about who they are and why they are and what it is that we're going to bring to their town. And when they get out of high school and go to college, we want them to come back and help to revitalize this town, because the slaves that cut this town out of the jungle were not the ones that envisioned the town. Carl, this is really something. Joseph Davis was the brother to Jefferson Davis. Jefferson Davis, as you all know, was the head of the Confederacy. Joseph Davis was the head of the plantation that was at Vicksburg, Mississippi. That's where the ones that cut this town that I'm sitting in and talking to you. They cut it out of the jungle. They came from there, but it was in Joseph Davis's mind for us to have this place. It was born in a white man's mind that I didn't see as a white man because he didn't allow no slave to be beat on that plantation. And they had their own courts where they could judge their own behavior. And if it was too severe, and sometimes it was, Joseph Davis would lessen the punishment on the slave because he would say that's too severe. So there are human beings that are white only because their color is white. But they are human beings because they have a good heart and a good mind. And Joseph Davis was one of those individuals. That's how Mountain Bayou came into being, because it was born while he was riding in a stagecoach back in Philadelphia with an individual from Europe that envisioned towns like this.
I pulled up the right, and I pulled up the T-shirt, and one of the ones that struck me is the one with the person with a kneel, and he says, "I kneel so that the black family can stand." Can you explain that? Yeah, because is that supposed to be Colin Kaepernick kneeling and this young man staring at him?
Yeah, that silhouette is a black man, but we all know where the kneel came from. It came from Cap.
All right, hold that thought right there. We got to take another quick break, and I'll let you explain this one for the audience. Folks, you too can join our discussion. Our guest, his name is Dr. Donald Evans. He's the founder of the National African American Family Reunion Association. We'll take your calls from him after this short break right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450, WOL, where information is power. Thanks for rolling with us, folks. Our guest is Dr. Donald Evans. As I mentioned, he's the founder of the National African American Family Reunion Association. And they believe that keeping the black family as a unit, mother and father, children, a single unit, like it was back in the day when most of us were growing up, is the key to the survival of the black community. And he's got some T-shirts, and before we left, I was asking about, he sent me some pictures of one, and one that says, "I kneel." Let me see if I can see what it says on there. And it says, so that, I guess, so the black family can stand. So can you tell us about that shirt, that particular shirt? What's this all about?
Well, we all know how the kneel conversation came to be. And Cap was telling us that he was sick of seeing the people not being held accountable for killing young black boys and what have you on the streets, and black men, naturally. And he was kneeling to bring attention to that. The farthest thing from his mind was desecrating the flag. That wasn't why he was kneeling. He was kneeling for his people. He was making a protest. He was making a peaceful protest. And that's what I said before. When I salute the flag for the Caps to have the right to make a peaceful protest when there's an injustice done to his people. And when you were saying he's kneeling because he's dissatisfied, he's kneeling because he wants our families to have the right to stand up, to be treated with justice and not injustice. That's what that's about, Carl. It's our voice. That's the black man's voice that's kneeling. That's who Cap is. And whenever they ostracize Cap, they're doing the same thing to all of us.
All right, good deal. Dr. Evans, I'm going to let you go, but how can folks reach you? And before I let you go, I know you have a message you want to send to Dr. Anderson, and he's on the line. But first, tell how folks can reach you, and then I'll let you talk to Dr. Anderson.
All right, you can reach me by calling this number, area code 213-247-4189. Let me repeat. That's 213-487-4189. And call, let me say that along with that number. When you call that number, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to say this very briefly, I'm going to tell you that there is a brother in Benton Harbor, Michigan. His name is Reverend Pickney. He has been donated a church that he planned to put every one of these programs that I am talking to you about in that church program in order to treat our families that need that kind of help. He will have a family center and all of that. That's Reverend Pickney. and we are going to put a $25,000 club on that church, and we're going to do it in a hurry. So when I send out the call on Facebook, and however I get the word out there to you, I want you to understand, we will be selling you something. We won't be asking you to just give your money or donate your money.
All right. Dr. Evans, thank you for sharing that with us. And we got Dr. Claud Anderson with us. And you mentioned Dr. Anderson earlier, so I'm giving you a chance. Dr. Anderson, welcome back to WOL Radio.
Hi, Carl. Thank you for backing me back into your home.
And Dr. Evans, you wanted to say something to Dr. Anderson?
I certainly do. Dr. Anderson, it may be difficult for you to remember me. And for one thing, I'm like you, I'm much older now. But when you had to put that fish market, or fish industry rather, in Inglewood, California, I was one of the ones that bought some of the stuff for my great-grandchildren.
Well,
and I'm the one that was introduced to you through Milligan, Rosie.
Right. Yeah, I'm very proud of all of you. You all really tried, and we were going to build it out there, but unfortunately, the land we were trying to acquire from what's the little not Compton? What's the other little Inglewood, and the Hispanics put pressure on the mayor down there and told him basically that they didn't want doing anything unless Hispanics were included in it. I had to go before the city council, and then they said they had reached agreements with the civil rights organizations that no blacks would do anything in Inglewood without including Hispanics. And I got in front of them. Let me tell you one thing. I'm not a Hispanic, and not am I a civil rights leader. I have nothing on my business card that says anything about civil rights. I got a right to come in here and do anything I want for black folk. And if you want a major fight, you try to tell me I can't do it, help black folk in this city. But I do it. But I needed people like you all, and you all came. Y'all lined up sometimes for 2 blocks just to buy the stock. But unfortunately, so many black people lined up that got a call from Sacramento saying that I was violating the blue sky laws by having that many blacks coming to buy something down there. So, as you know, I returned all of your money and gave you an interest on it. Am I right?
Yes, you are. You're very much right.
But the same thing identically happened when I tried to build a black business district in Detroit. Again, the Hispanics, Arabs, and Asians came in a black city, a 92% black city, and told me, even though in the city of Detroit, Doctor, that they said, yes, we got in the city of Detroit, which is 92% black, we got an Asian town, a Chinatown, a Mexican town, a Pole town, a hockey town, a Cork town, and a Greek town. But it'd be racist for you to come in here and try to do something to help black folk, since they own nothing practically in this city. 92% of the businesses are owned by immigrants. And again, I told them to forget it, I'll leave it and quit. And that's how I pulled out of Detroit. That was the second time that it popped up where immigrants had more power in a black city than blacks did.
Dr. Evans?
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead, Dr. Evans.
Dr. Anderson, I want you to understand this. I'm putting together, already have it, and one of those T-shirts you see shopping while black. Yeah, that's one of the most powerful ones. Every time I look at that, I have cold chills all over me. I want Dr. Anderson to know that our Speaker Institute, we have a financial brain that will be managing this perpetual fund that I'm talking about. Because I asked him, do you think it's possible to go a perpetual fund into the billions? He said, yes. And I want to get on it right away as soon as I get out in May.
Well, you do that, and I wish to God we had about another 2 or 3 million blacks like you, Doc.
Well, the thing is, I believe there's some out there, and I believe there's some out there like you too, Dr. Anderson. The only thing it is they're so down and they're so hidden. We got to take all of those Negroes off them around them so they can come into sight. But this young brother is the one going to bring them into sight. Because when this young man gets to age, and Lord willing, I hope he get up to be my age, this planet will not be the same. If the 2 individuals got those buttons to play with, have blown it apart. So it's an honor to have you on because I want to do everything. I do not like the idea of you having to go nowhere to look for no money. I like to have a fund available to Dr. in order to maintain.
Well, I'll be perfectly honest with you, Dr. Evans. I've been trying now to raise money for the Harvest Institute to do a lot of things for black folk. Everything from lawsuits to having a national convention of about 20 or 30,000 blacks to show up either in Washington, D.C. or Chicago or Atlanta, where we to learn how to practice economics, practice group politics, and play to win as a competitive people. But unfortunately, I have never received any significant amount of money from any black who had significant amount of surplus capital. We have stayed in business, living off the nickels and dimes and pennies that we get from the poor blacks in the country. And the wealthy blacks, they are still a part of that black overclass, which I'm going to talk about today. That's a part of the impeding group. That's why you're never going to get out of the bottom of the barrel until we learn how to deal with them. I'll talk about that and address that today.
Well, for one thing, I tell all of you that any time that Dr. Anderson is on, you need to have your conversation that's coming across your phone. You need to have it recorded so you can play it back and play it back and play it back until you play it back.
Well, you stay with me, and I appreciate your support, and don't abandon me and leave me, okay?
All right, sir.
And thank you again.
Dr. Evans. Thanks, Dr. Evans. That's Dr. Donald Evans, the founder of the National African American Family Reunion Association. And Dr. Anderson, his group believes that keeping the family, the black family, intact is key to saving the black community. He says if we don't have black families intact as a unit, we don't have a community, because the black families will build a community. If we don't have a community, it goes right into what you were saying, using some of the stuff that you've been saying. That's why he's
absolutely right. It's very difficult to have a community if you don't have some basic institution. The first institution that you must have to be a competitive group inside of a community. You must have a family. That's the first unit you're supposed to have, a family unit or the institution of the family. Secondly, you have to have a relatives rally around you to be able to pool your resources. Third, you must have the religious organizations in that are peculiar to you. Also should be your basic institutions for teaching you how to practice group economics and group politics. Every group of human beings on earth have always used the first driver beyond the family has been religion. That's why the Arabs, when they first invaded Africa in 765 A.D., the first thing they did was use their religion to enrich and to wealth and to tie their people together to take over Africa. As in 765 A.D., they marched into Africa, Carl, in search of what they called the 3 Gs, God, glory, and gold, and used their religion to empower, to enrich Arabs coming into Africa to take over Africa. The same thing followed with the Jews. The Jews would teaching their children that in the synagogues, at any time, anywhere, that they must learn that there's a Jew someplace producing, managing, and selling a product, and that's what they buy from them. They buy first and foremost from their own people. They stay as a unit. And then the Catholic Church did the same thing when they began to spread around the world. Went into the Middle East, and into Latin America, and into all these other countries.
Right.
Promoting.
Hang on a second, Doc. We got to take a quick break here. We got to check the traffic. No, we're going up to, what is it? Yeah, we got to check the traffic and weather in the DMV. But I want you to come back when you mention all those countries and those folks do it. Why don't we do it? I want you to explain that to us right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is the man with the plan. That's like what we like to call him. He's the only person that we know that has a comprehensive economic plan just for the black America. You know, other folks got economic plans. They're for minorities, or they're for a compendium of different people that includes us. But Dr. Anderson is the only person that I know of that's got a plan, economic plan that's comprehensively done, especially solely for black folks. And that's why we call him the man with a plan. He's one of our power talkers. His latest book is called A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. Folks, you got to pick up this book. It answers a lot of questions that you sit around and you figure out why we don't this, why we don't do that. This book's got the answers in it. Before we left for the break, Dr. Anderson was telling us about other groups, how they seek out their people. Whenever they're going to spend money or do business or services, they go looking for their people. And my question to Dr. Anderson was going to be, why don't we do it? We seem to do the opposite. We want to find and do business with everybody else except somebody who looks like us. What's wrong with us, Dr. Anderson?
Well, I was going to tell you right before you left that I totally agree with Dr. Evans, what he was saying about the need to have about the family to be a part of the community. And that is absolutely essential. But unfortunately, Carl, for a long time now, you got those who are socially and politically naive, or those who are just willingly being bamboozled by the broad society, are being taught that it takes a village to raise a child and to keep it. That's absolutely wrong. That anybody who got past the third grade would know that a village is a physical setting or physical entity. It takes a community of people who come together and united in common agreement, common concern, and a common future and common needs. And it takes a community to raise a child or raise children. So or a family would be the first element in that community. He's absolutely right. Now to go back to your other question about, you asked about religion. And as I indicated to you first, that Arabs have always used their religion to raise and lift the power and the resources and the business opportunities for Arabs. And as I indicated, back in 765, they marched into Africa to take over Africa, to be able to subordinate them and to be able to acquire as much resources as they could extract out of Africa. They used the concept, they called it looking for the 3 G's, God, glory, and gold. And that's why finally they beat and broke Africa in about the 12th century. And but that before that, they were just looking strictly to be able to dominate and prevail over it. And currently, the Arabs are still subordinate blacks and sell them as slaves in Mauritania, Sudan, and Ethiopia for about $150 each. The Arabs have enslaved over 13 million black folk over the last 1,300 years. They enslaved about 1 million blacks a year. And so these blacks are constantly using their religion to elevate and to compete for wealth and power. And the Jews did the same thing with the synagogues. They've always taught, they stayed together as a group and said even in the 15th century they had a chance to socially integrate and religiously integrate. They said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to teach in our synagogues from the first grade up that every Jewish child must know that wherever he's going to buy, what he's going to corporate, he start with his own people first. Because someplace there's a Jew making, manufacturing, selling everything he needs. And the Catholics did the same thing. They spread out around the world after they took the slaves in the 1400s and started a new thing called racism. That was came out of the Catholic Church by Pope Innocent in 1488. It says, don't use anybody else for slaves. Use black folk. Basically, these black slaves that I picked up from Henry the Navigator in the Catholic Church about 40 years before that. That started racism. Prior to that time, contrary to what you hear from Hannity and the Fox Channel and some of these conservatives about we've always had slaves and slavery. No, you haven't. Slavery prior to that time was based on 3 elements. You could not be a slave any place from at that time unless you fell into one of those 3 bags. 1, that you were a prisoner of war. 2, that you were personally indebted to somebody. Or 3, for religious persecution. That was the only 3 reasons they were enslaving people. And then the Catholic Church started a new system called racism, which says let's throw in a 4th factor for the first time in the history of the nation. Let's start enslaving people based on skin color. That's how racism started. You got people still running around the country talking about we only got one thing, that's one race, that's a biological race. That's a lie. Racism never existed up until that time. When people discriminated and were biased towards a group, it was based on one of those 3 factors that is named, and the only groups you had running around them were called tribalism. It was not, and it wasn't based on skin color. But the Catholic Church then used their church to enrich themselves all around the world, throughout the Latin American and through the Middle East and around the world, to bring wealth and power back to Italy and then to the Pope and to the Catholic Church. And the Protestants started to answer your question about why blacks can't do it, because when the evangelical movement went through this country in the late 1700s, about 1795, when black folk were enslaved, but they wanted to get some religious indoctrination or affiliation or association with a religion, they persevered to try to keep begging the white slave masters to let them have a religion. So around 1820, for the first time, the Protestants said, well, let's let the blacks go to church. We'll put them in a segregated section, but we got to make sure that they don't use it to try to get free. And so they said, so consequently, we'll appoint every religious practitioner or minister to be able to control those black people when they come to church. And he'll sit in every session. And we're going to teach that preacher to teach black folks a catechism that says the 3 things. If you learn the religion, the Protestant religion in this country, you must learn to do 3 things, and you have to repeat it all day long. That your primary responsibility is to work hard, to be obedient. Point 1. Point 2, to be able to respect and appreciate the white master. And 3, to look for salvation or pie in the sky after death. And that started in about 1818, and it never changed. And right now, most of your churches across America are still doing the same thing, teaching blacks to be hardworking, to be obedient, loyal, and try to get love and respect from other people, and to look for pie in the sky after death. That's why, Carl, you had about 65,000 black churches in America and about 122,000 black ministers. They bring in about $6 billion out of black folks' pockets every year, but they don't spend one penny to do anything to elevate the quality of life for black folk. They don't produce any jobs, any services or goods, anything for black folk or business opportunities. So that way that money is wasted and spent in making bigger and bigger mega churches and buying more Cadillacs, Mercedes, and Benz. That's why your churches have never been used to help elevate blacks. That's why right now, with this DACA issue in Washington right now about bringing in more immigrants, here's the Democratic Party, the civil rights leaders, and the black elected officials going out. So let's bring the black ministers into Washington, D.C. and make them convince black folk to support more open-door immigration for people who are coming in to compete against black folk and be over black folk.
Now, in your book, Black History Reader, on page 1, I think it's 160, you talk about that because that issue's in the news right now, and black people are trying to figure out how should they deal with it. You know, how the immigration policies specifically injure Native Black Americans. You know, and some people are saying that we should favor it because you have black countries, because we saw what 45 said about Haiti and Native Africans. Continental Africans earlier this week, and a lot of people feel kinship to those folks. When you say that immigration, are you excluding the black immigrants, or are you including them as well?
Well, let's first go back a second, because you asked about the Black Reader. The Black Reader right now is the most important book that black folk can possibly get their hands on, in addition to the books that I put out previously. I've covered all these issues, Carl, over and over again. For 40 years, I've been trying my best to convince black folk about the social construct they're locked into. But half don't listen, and they hear but they don't listen, and those who do listen, they don't do. And ironically, when I put out Powernomics, that my second or third book, if you look at the back cover, I talked about, again, what I call the social construct. And I indicated that in this country, you operate on a social construct that was based around right now about integration. And in the back of that book, it talked about how integration, again, black folk are being forced and kept into a lower level of a real-life monopoly game, and that black folk were just socially enjoying the fruits of a social integration process, and they were enjoying an illusion. And ironically, about a year or so after I put out that book, Carl, here comes a movie saying the same thing. The Matrix, the movie called The Matrix, said the same identical thing that I said. It said basically that you had people in that movie that were black oriented, and they were the lead characters, and they were talking about a matrix. A matrix was a social illusion that was set up to render some people invisible and make them unnecessary and under total absolute control. And that was just the same thing that my book was saying in Powernomics. And look at the back cover of it; all that's laid out for you. And ironically, also in following the Matrix book, the lead character of that book was a guy named Mr. Anderson, not Dr. Anderson. And that's why people say, Doctor, your book and that movie is saying the same thing instead of Dr. Anderson. They say Mr. Anderson, and they're being the chosen one. So I said, no, I don't want that title. But I wrote all those books to say, black folk, you got a major problem that needs to be corrected. And so in the book now, the social construct says black folk are locked in boxcar, and now they're talking about this DACA immigration policy in Washington, D.C. And what we're talking about now, they have to get out and pass a new immigration law. And black folk right now are being told to support it. And then nobody is raising the major issues, and never have in the history of this nation, about what is the negative impacts. The two things that black folk need right now that has to be done in this week, or otherwise that immigration bill, if it's passed, is going to be a tombstone over black folks' head. This immigration bill now is designed to make black folk totally disappear forever. Where they're trying to now to legalize somewhere between 800,000 so-called illegal children, anchor children in the country, and about 14 million other Hispanics coming into the country alone. And that means that black folk will be totally through. And never called in the history of this nation that anybody asked the two concrete questions to get to your point that are essentially for black folk to continue to not prosper, but just to survive in America. First is that no one has ever said that since in physics, for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. The same thing is true in social economics. If you, in fact, bring in all these people into the country, and there has to be a negative, a downside of it, what is it? Nobody has ever said, what is the negative impact of immigration on black folk? You bring in these millions and millions of people for 460 years over black folk. There has to be a negative. What is the negative? Nobody's ever asked that. The second thing is that when you ask that, what are the factors that are keeping blacks from being mobilized and competitive people in the society? And that would be two things. One is the United States Supreme Court, which is carrying out all the mandates and principles and doctrines in the Constitution. The United States Constitution was the first affirmative action plan in the country. It was strictly and solely for whites. The second thing is you have a black overclass that's made up of 6 key elements. Those individuals are like the United States Supreme Court, are designed to keep black folk in order, to make sure they support the status quo while they get special privileges and benefits for themselves without any connection to trying to elevate the quality of life of black folk. And all this, Carl, goes back to your question to 1790. The first thing in 1790, following the 1789 ratification of the United States Constitution, was the first nationalization and immigration law in this country, which says this is a white country. Anybody coming to this country to get benefits must be white or can pass for whites. And black folk, and there's a zero quota on black folk. That's the first nationalization law in the history of this nation, was to make it a white country and to bring in everybody but black folk. While the Constitution had designed for black folk the previous year to be an underclass, that they would be subordinate. They would be equal to a field animal. They would be 3/5 of a human being. They would not have any rights or privileges. They cannot have humanity. And I can go on and on. But those are the major problems right there, is that you've been defined as a permanent underclass. And then after that, they did everything they could to keep bringing in immigrants into this country. And as they bring in these immigrants, they brought them in based on a Diversity Act set up in 1705, saying that we're going to bring immigrants into this country, but we're going to make sure that black folk who now...
Hang on a sec, Doc. We got to take a quick break here so some of our stations can identify themselves, like FM 95.9 and AM 1450, WOL, where information is power. Thanks for staying with us, folks. Just getting off work on the East Coast at 6 o'clock straight up. Our guest is Dr. Claud Anderson, one of our power talkers. Dr. Anderson, as I mentioned, we call him the man with a plan because he's the only one I know that has a comprehensive economic plan for the black community. It's not one for minorities. It's not one for multicultural. It's straight up for black folks. And he's got the Harvest Institute, which is a think tank, and the only one that we know of, really, that also does the same thing. It researches issues for black people totally. So if you want to support him, I'll have him give out his number before he leaves. And if you know somebody who you know who's not quite woke yet, you need to give him one of Dr. Anderson's books. Pick any one of them. You know, Black Labor, White Wealth tells us how we got in the situation we got into. Powernomics is a roadmap to show us our way out of that situation. And his latest book, and he's got two other books, Dirty Little Secrets, chock full of little information about black folks. You just study that book and they'll think you're real smart because you know everything about black people. But his other book, the latest book, is called A Black History Reader, 101 questions you never thought to ask. And what Dr. Anderson is doing right now is answering the one about immigration. When folks talk to you about the immigration issue that's right around roiling the country right now, this is the response you should give. So, Doc, I'm going to let you finish that thought, and then we got some folks who want to talk to you from around the country.
Okay, good. Thank you, Carl. Now, I hope I might cut these answers short because I know you got callers. But and let me say it at the outset again, is that what I'm saying about blacks should be anti-immigration doesn't mean they should be anti any population, specific group of people. That's not what I'm saying. What they should be opposed to is this country's national immigration policies and nationalization policies that have been in existence ever since 1790. That's what they should be against. They should be demanding that those policies be changed. Those policies must be changed. And the blacks must demand they be changed before they approve any more immigration laws into this country. They must either do one or two things. I'm jumping ahead of myself. One or two things. They must either go back and examine exactly what is the negative impact of black folk in this country economically, socially, politically, health-wise, in all respects. That's the first thing they must do. And then try to figure out how they can make restitution to bring black folk up to a level where they would get all those benefits that they've been denied for 460 years that went to immigrants and did not come to them. That's the first thing. The second thing, they must demand that if you're not going to do that for black folk, before you approve a DACA law, immigration law in this country this week or next week, you must put black folk legally into a protected class. You must put blacks into a protected class, just like you put Indians into a protected class. You got women in a protected class. You got gays going into a protected class. And you're trying to put these immigrants into a protected class so they get special benefits and leave black folk out. blacks must make those two demands and stick to it. Those are the primary things they must do in the next week or two. He used every form of media to do it. See, we're not going for it anymore. But it's not being against immigrants. It's saying that you cannot continue to protect other people and give them benefits and deprive black folk and keep them locked into a permanent lower class in our society. And in that respect, see, black folk is and in doing that, you must demand that this nation go back and look and examine what was the purpose of slavery. Slavery has never been checked or been corrected. Nobody's ever examined what was the primary purpose of slavery. It wasn't about white supremacy. It was that white folk were using the Constitution and all their public laws to systematically going through slavery to maldistribute almost 100% of all this nation's wealth, power, income, privileges, rights, resources, and controls and preferences and all levels of government into the hands of the dominant white society, so black folk could not be a competitive group. And all those resources and money went into the white society. And the one I just left out should be is land. This nation gave out 1 billion, it would be a billion acres of land to immigrants coming to this country as immigrants. Immigrants were invited to this country to enrich themselves. That was called the American Dream. Any immigrant can come in this country and get everything they want, and the American Dream was made up of two elements. One was free land and free black labor, and black labor brought 90% of the value to the land. And that's why the founding fathers invited every European nation to send as many whites as they could to America. And people, most of those countries clean out their prisons, their mental institutions, and their poorhouses. They ship them to America. So the white folk could set up a diversity act which would keep black folk as a minority. And since that time, they kept blacks as a minority by bringing in an unending influx into immigrants into this country. That's why when slavery, and I'm concluded with this, that's why when at the end of the Civil War, you only had about 4,000 Hispanics in the entire United States, and 30 years later you had 100,000, but you had 12 million black people in the United States. They had the same identical birth rate for 100 years, the same identical birth rate, and during that course of the 100 years, from 1900 to 2000, blacks population increased by 300%. But the population of Hispanics went up over 57, almost 7,000%. That's why now they caught that those 4,000 caught blacks and passed them. Now you got 44 million blacks in the country and about 57 million Hispanics. And if they prove this new law next week, they're dropping about another 12 to 14 million Hispanics into the United States, and they got a right to bring in their cousins, their sisters, their mothers, their aunts, and everybody under what they call the family process. And then they're going to go up to about 80 million. They have twice as many as black folk. They wiped out blacks in all respects. We'll talk about that a little later. They wiped out blacks in their voting power. They wiped out the Hispanics are wiping out blacks in economics, taking their jobs. They're replacing them in every respect. Black folk in deep, deep trouble. And let blacks sit on their butts now and watch the TV and watching people playing with balls or singing and dancing and telling jokes and watch what's going to happen after this new bill is put into effect. It'll be the tombstone, as I said, over them.
Right. And let me just reiterate, I don't think Doc is saying that we should be hating on the Hispanics. Am I correct in saying that?
Right. No, don't be against Hispanics. Don't be against anybody. It's not them. It's our elected officials in our public policy. Just like Obama ran down there, he invited them all in and made money. He went out and picked up 110,000 of these called DACA kids, and he provided clothing for them, transportation for them, free education, free schooling, and health benefits. They have never, not one president, not one elected official that ever come out and say, at the public level says, let's provide some special benefits to black folk in this country. Let's do something for black folk in Chicago, St. Louis, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. They need food stamps and welfare and health. But they give everything. These people got all kind of benefits. They come to this country because they're coming in here for unearned benefits. Right now, the white society live off of 87% of the income of the average white person in America is unearned. They don't work for it. They get it from land, resources, inheritance, trust accounts, food, everything they get is almost free. It's unearned, just like slavery. But that's what these immigrants are coming here. They're getting benefits that the typical black in America has never had and will never get once they get buried with this new law.
All right. Now we got some people who want to talk to you. 800-450-7876. Get you on to speak to Dr. Anderson. Ben is calling us from Washington, D.C. He's on line 2. Ben, you're on with Dr. Anderson. You have a question for him?
Yes, I do. So you must agree with the immigration policy of Donald Trump, because you do sound like Donald Trump from a black perspective of keeping all these immigrants out. And I want you to comment upon that. And also, if we can't do things above radar, then maybe we need to do things under the radar. That's not why I originally called. But I want you also to comment upon the concepts of direct marketing, targeted marketing, which involves, first of all, product, price, placement, and promotion. And I'm asking this because I've heard you numerous times before on this station, and perhaps you have, some great economical concepts like poweronomics, which I appreciate. But somehow, whether it's done through the purchasing of your materials or even the donations of your materials, which are concepts through various means, must find themselves placed in the hands of perhaps every black mayor, black congressman, and to the greatest extent possible, be placed in the hands of black business owners and every black college and university, and also in the hands of black advocacy groups, for instance, like the National Action Network.
Right.
And he was,
right, Ben, we get the gist of your question. Let's give him a chance to respond, because you put a load on in there. In fact, Dr. Anderson, do you remember all three questions?
I think I got a general feel on what he's asking. He's asked a very good question. Let me summarize as quickly as I can. And I think that if I could have gotten my poweronomics principles distributed in mentally and then paper all over this country, we would have been able to do what he's asking to do. Then we could have provided him with the strategies, the techniques, and how to do the most appropriate marking for to practice group economics and group empowerment. And that's one of the reasons, Carl, I was trying to raise enough funds to have that major convention that I spoke about a few minutes ago. If I'd had the money to be able to have a major convention in this country like you've never seen, that major convention would call all the blacks that I know that want to attend that got these business interests similar to this man. And we'd brought in them into a major arena in one of these major cities. And we would spend an entire week workshopping, not just lecturing, workshopping, learning how to practice economics and empowerment and marketing and distribution of resources and how to do vertical ordered business development. And I'd already planned to bring in also blacks from Jamaica, from the Caribbean, and from Africa. What ECOWAS, they're going to bring in some of their major industrialists who are going to bring resources into this country. And we'd had them in the last 2 days of that convention. We'd had a mix and match session where we'd had them all coming down. They would sit and create joint ventures and good partnerships to develop the products, produce services and goods in this country. Because right now you got groups around the world that are planning on eliminating most of the consumers around the world. That's what this whole movement is about. Those who don't produce are going to get wiped off the face of the earth. Black folk right now are 100% consumers and zero producers. We'd have use that convention to plan how people can learn how to practice group economics to answer this man's question. Because right now, with a $1 trillion income, if we had that $1 trillion income and we were to practice group economics and make it bounce in our community 8 to 12 times as it's supposed to, then blacks would have 10 or 12 times the money they have now in their hands. Hispanic money bounces 6 to 7 times. White money bounces 8 to 12. Arabs and Asians bounces 13 to 14 times. Jewish money bounces 18. Black money doesn't bounce once. That's why we don't have any business communities. That's just
right. Hold that thought right there, Doc. Yeah, hold that thought right there. We got to take a look at the traffic and weather in the DMV. Actually, our last look at the traffic and weather. Folks, you too can join our discussion with Dr. Anderson. Reach out to us at 800-450-7876. We'll take your phone calls next on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. Thanks for rolling with us, folks. Our guest is the man with a plan. That's what we like to call him, Dr. Claud Anderson. Again, his latest book is called A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. If you want to give it to your friend who you think needs to waken up a little bit, and after reading this is a quick course, they will be awoke. I'm telling you. Dr. Anderson, before we get back to him, let me just tell you this. Dr. Anderson was the person who wrote the first modern-day affirmative action plan in this country. Wrote it for, I think it was Dade County, Florida. And what happened was when the Cubans came over, they took it and used all the elements in it. And one of the first things they did, if you want a job working with a county or working in many of the businesses there, you got to speak Spanish, because that's what they did. So they used it. So we've got to figure out a way how we can come up with something, or maybe Dr. Anderson come up with another plan that puts us on first base before everybody else. But Dr. Anderson, I'll let you finish your response to Ben's set of questions, and we got a bunch of other folks from across the country who want to speak to you.
Okay, thank you, Carl. And my affirmative action plan is not necessarily, it covered Dade County, was for the entire state of Florida. It was approved by the governor and the state cabinet system, and approved and went all around the country. But the second thing, Carl, to answer that earlier gentleman's question, tell him we need to start building these communities and start practicing group economics and competitive group economics within our own community, which means we learn how to buy from our own selves and produce our own products, services, and goods and business opportunities. And it should be based around some very simple premises. For marketing is based on what I call cost-benefit analysis. Spend your money where you get the most greatest benefit. You get the greatest benefit by being able to build businesses around wherever you dominate in population and dominate in consumer patterns. That's where your money should be going. You build your own businesses. Black folk dominate in many things. You should be controlling those things from the bottom to the top. In seafood, it should have been from the boat to the throat. In leather, you're a major consumer of leather, major consumer of Scotch liquor, major consumer of your only black hair care. You're the only people who have certain texture of hair. You should be controlling the hair industry and hair care from the bottom to the top. And then it gets, and the marketing becomes very easy. Then if you got a community and you buy from your own people, make your money bounce 8 to 12 times. Right now, black money doesn't bounce one time. And more importantly, black folk now spend 98% of their money outside of their own community. They spend their money goes into white businesses, Arab businesses, Hispanic business, and Asian businesses. Then black folk hit 2% on their own community, neighborhoods. You cannot exist and be a competitive people in this nation and trying to survive and live off of 2% of your annual disposable income. Quit bragging about you got $1 trillion worth of annual income and you only keep 2% in your own market and your own community. I'm ready, Carl, for your next question.
All right, there's a bunch of folks. Let's go to Chicago on line 1, 800-450-7876. Charles is waiting for us. Charles, you're on with Dr. Anderson. You have a question for him?
Good. Thank you, Carl, for taking my call. You're the baddest talk show host, black folks throughout the diaspora, and bringing on the heavy hitters, and that would be an understatement. Dr. Claud, thank you very much for coming on the air again. And let me tell you something real quick. When I lived in Southern California, and I graduated, I talked to Carl about this earlier. I lived in Southern California, just graduated, young cat coming out of college and everything, trying to find a job in project management and IT. Do you know, I couldn't find a job nowhere. Hispanics had everything sold and locked up. I went to towns like Montclair, California, Chino Hills, Pomona. I said, if I can't get no job, let me go in and ask for, can I become a volunteer? And I figured that I can get some experience that way, but they knew that if I got that experience, that would make inroads for me to be able to get in positions and things of that nature. I mean, everywhere, Corona, every place I went, the doors was shut. But who was controlling it? When I had to interface with somebody, Dr. Claude, it was somebody that were Hispanics. They had jobs, I'm talking about Mexicans, they had jobs from the top all the way to the bottom. And let me tell you something. It didn't matter if they're Puerto Rican, Mexican, whatever. My experience has been when I was in the military, when we were fighting white folks that didn't want us on the ships or didn't want us on the military bases, because I was in both branches, they would come together, the Hispanics and the Mexicans would come together against us. I mean, against us.
Charles, do us a favor, because we got a bunch of folks want to talk to Dr. Anderson. Can you put in a question for him so he can respond?
Okay, my question is, you got guys like Dick Durbin, who said he's been working on this thing for years. And so you're saying within the next week or so, if we don't get our act together to try to start pressuring this, are you recommending that we, and Dick Durbin don't give a care about black folks here in Chicago, do you recommend that we call his office and recommend that they set a policy to put us in a protected class? How do we synthesize this information that you're giving to us as a milestone, not a milestone, as a marching order in a sense, to try to put us in a better position, like you said, in a protected class? What do we do at this juncture?
First thing I think, you exercise all necessary manners that you can get your hands on, whether it's electronic or paper or march and hit the streets. You get out there and demand that neither the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party move one step further in opening up the doors of this country to bring in more immigrants into this country to bury black folk. See, and that's your problem, is that now neither the Democratic Party nor the Republican Party gives a damn about what happened to black folk. They take you for granted, and they're going to bring in anybody over you, and they're going to bury you. So what you should do is demand that you're going to rectify this problem, hold it, and analyze what were the negative conditions that are entering black folk. The ones you're talking about in California, you can't find jobs. You're losing your jobs. You're losing your space. You're losing your cities. You're losing all your economic opportunities. You've now been pushed out of the conscience of this country and replaced by Hispanics. You're not where you were black folk were the majority minority population in this country for 450 years. The Hispanics have now made you a minority. You're no longer the minority. You are second to Hispanics. Hispanics now says your day is over. They don't need you. That anything coming to this country must now go through the Hispanics before they can get to black folk. They're saying that our cup run of votes, anything left, you might have what's left, but we're going to make sure there ain't very much left. You got to hit and say, we're going to demand that you, first of all, that you go back and do a comprehensive analysis of the negative impact of immigrants in this country. Don't go to whites. Whites are not injured by immigrants. They are part of a block. The Arabs, Asians, Hispanics come to this country, they are basically classified as whites. They don't get hurt. The people that get hurt are black folk. He said, we want to find what is the negative impact on blacks across this country. And two, if you're not going to put out, and you hold it off until you find out how to correct that and make sure black folk are not injured. And if it don't correct, you put blacks into a protected class and say, now, any of the immigrants coming here cannot compete against black folk for jobs, business opportunities. They cannot penetrate the black community and become what we call rolling or rotating businesses, where they come into your community, set up businesses, suck your money out, and move it into their communities. You must do that. You use the newspapers, the media, electronic, and you do it immediately and tell the politicians, and whether it's black politicians, black elected officials, the civil rights leaders, the black ministers, that if they don't try to protect the blacks in this country, you're going to start boycotting them just like you're going to boycott everybody else's business.
All right. Thanks, Charles. 800-450-7876. Line 2, Samurai is reaching out to us. He's in Hyattsville, Maryland. Brother Samurai, you're on with Dr. Anderson. Your question.
Yes, how you doing, Carl? How you doing, Dr. Anderson?
Hi, sir. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Real quick question. I hear a lot of people talking about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, and I just want to know your opinion. Do you think that this is something black people, the black community, should invest in or look at as a tool that can help us, or is that just something that really shouldn't be in our scope, that shouldn't be in our focus?
Well, right now, I'll answer as quickly as I can. I would be very leery and cautious about putting my money in anything that's electronic-based. That's the first of all. But on the other hand, with your hard currency, you're going to have a major currency reevaluation pretty soon across the world anyway, because right now the typical dollar that you got in your pocket right now is only worth about 2 cents, down to 2 pennies, because they've been pushing paper money for the longest in this country ever since 1972. So it has no asset value. So sooner or later, when all these major countries reevaluate, the dollar will be weaken. If you go watch the paper today, the front page of the Wall Street Journal is showing the front page how the dollar is dropping in currency value. It's going to drop all the way around the world. And that's the first thing. But in terms of going to the Bitcoin, anything you put in electronics, you got a good chance of being totally wiped out. Like everything right now in libraries, all our books, everything is going electronic. All you need is a magnetic storm or an atomic bomb or a hydrogen bomb to go off someplace, and it'll wipe every record, everything electronically wiped clean. You'll never have a record again. And even if you don't get an atomic explosion or a magnetic storm to wipe out your electronic records, right now you got hackers all around the world that can hack anything. If they can hack the embassy, the Pentagon, and the Department of Commerce and the Democratic Party, you got to be on the foolish side to put all your money into an electronic form with nothing but a light showing up on the screen, and all of a sudden that light goes out and you no longer having the money to be able to feed and clothe and take care of your family. I would invest if you invest in anything now, invest in things that are hard term and that you can touch, feel, and smell and count. That's why you go back to Get My Powernomics book. There's a section that shows you how wealth and power was built, and it runs in a 360-degree circle. And right now it's going through. It runs in quarters. It went from 12 to 3 to 6. Is now at 9 o'clock, which everything is being computer driven. These computers are going to collapse pretty soon for one of those three things I talked to you about: terrorism, traitors, hacking, or magnetic storms, and you will have nothing. Try to deal with tangibles as much as you possibly can, things you can measure, hold, and count, and store someplace.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Samurai. 800-450-7876. Agnes is up next on line 3, calling from the ATL. Agnes, your question for Dr. Anderson.
AKA Gladys R.J. Divine. 16 days after Kwanzaa, I bring you greetings, Dr. Claud Anderson, of Happy New Year, to practice the 7 principles of Nguzo Saba, 360 days, 24/7. Would you agree? And in addition, I like your book, Doctor. And I came to D.C. to see you and broke the wheels, but I forgive you for that. I still want your signature, and I want to tell you this one thing right here. Why is it that you focus on black family assimilation under European domination and racism versus Pan-Africanism, economic liberation, such as Dr. Martin Luther King's separate mountaintop promised land reservation. And in addition, my question is, would you agree that both Minister Farrakhan, Minister Jesse Jackson, and Minister Al Sharpton should encourage Colin Kaepernick to advocate and demand 21st century economic emancipation proclamation, or we continue to do modern day sharecropping and political politics of humiliation? Do you love me? I love you.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I'm totally agree that you should call those individuals and tell them exactly what you just recited to me. And secondly, most importantly, though, I would place my heaviest emphasis on Black Americans before I put it on, even on Pan-Africanism, even though I'm very strongly supportive of Pan-Africanism. But one thing you must learn early in life is drop your bucket where you stand. Take care of your own people first. It's like other ways. You got.
Hang on a second, Doc. We got to take another quick break. I'll let you finish responding to Agnes on the other side. 800-450-7876. That's the number to call. Speak to Dr. Anderson, which he calls next. It's a big show. It rolls on from Radio 1's flagship station. We're on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is the man with a plan. That's what we like to call him, Dr. Claud Anderson. As I mentioned, he's the only one that we know of that has a comprehensive economic plan for the black community. Others, they've got it for minorities or multicultural or some other stuff like that. But Dr. Anderson's plan is specifically for black folks. And again, because he won't say, so I'll say it. Anybody else that you see here talking about economics, they poach portions of Dr. Anderson's plan and try to reconfigure it into their own, because this is where it all starts from. Anybody you can think of that says they have an economic plan, they stole parts and pieces of it and put them together like it's their plan. But if you look and listen to them real clean, and if you've read Dr. Anderson's books, you know where you've heard that before. But anyway, having said that, Doc, I'm going to let you finish responding to Agnes's question. Then we got some more people who want to speak to you.
Oh, okay, Carol, and let me remind the people that those books right now are on a special package. You need to get those books if you're really going to understand these issues. If you're going to sit there and watch TV and go spend all your time reading books like Jack City and Waiting to Exhale and Color Purple and How Susie Lost Her Groove, you're never going to know what's going to happen to you in the future because you're going to go down the toilet anyway. But you can get those books right now through the Powernomics Corporation by going to www.powernomics.com, and you can order those books. We have a special out there right now. You get all 5 of these books that are unlike any other books in the history of this nation. There's never been any books written like these books to help black folk. These books are how-to cookbooks, recipes, roadmaps to help black folk, blueprints to show black folk how to survive and understand the issues that are confronting them. So you can get all 5 of those books plus a DVD on how to educate black children for $99 by going to the Powernomics website and ordering off the website. Or you can get the smaller package of only 3 books for $65, which would be Powernomics, Black Labor, White Wealth, and the Black Reader. And all these books, like Ebony and Jet and all of them, say they're used as second Bibles for black folk around the world. These books are the most popular, best-selling black books in the history of the world, going all around the world. And you can get them all in a package. And if you can't get them off the website, then call the Powernomics Corporation. That number, here's the telephone number for you who have a pencil. You can call 301-564-6075. Again, call 301-564-6075 and order those packages and get those books as fast as you can. We are in deep trouble. And don't listen to all these people that tell you about we've come a long way since slavery. You haven't gone. You're still in the same position you were in slavery. You're still at the bottom of the barrel, and everybody's coming in over you, including all these immigrants that have been coming from Europe, Asia, and Latin America for the last 400 years. They're burying you.
All right. 800-450-7876. Brother Amafika is joining us on line 4. Is calling from West Palm Beach in Florida. Brother Amafika, you're on with Dr. Anderson.
Carl, and good afternoon, Dr. Anderson.
Good afternoon, sir.
I just heard a previous caller make a comment that perhaps you might want to expound on somewhat, Dr. Anderson. He seemed to think that there was some similarity between what you were saying regarding the position or attitude that black people should have towards this whole immigration issue and what he hears from, or that's attributed to Donald Trump. I think that that's a terrible misunderstanding on his part, but I suspect that probably there are others who are making the same mistake. So perhaps if you were to point out to folks that one of the most critical reasons why they should purchase this most recent book of yours, a Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask, is because in the book, unlike what you have with limited time on even an outstanding Black Talk radio program such as Carl's, you have limited time to respond to each individual caller. But if people were to purchase that book and read it and digest what is in it, they will understand quite clearly and readily that there is no similarity between the positions that you're advocating, which all have to do with black folk and are completely independent of any position that anyone else has taken or is taking on any of the same issues, because yours come from your own grasp and wealth of knowledge and insights and understandings about the history and the evolution of black people in America. So I would like to have you, if you don't mind, address that, because I think it can help clear the air, and perhaps some of these folks will then get their copy of the book, join some of the study groups that we're pushing people to set up around the country to purchase, read, and study and discuss the book and get clarification rather than confusion. And I thank you.
All right. Thanks, Amafika.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Amafika, and you're right on target, and I deeply appreciate that. And again, in my haste to try to respond to all these answers, all these questions in a matter of a few seconds, I did run right over answering that question. No, I'm totally different from the process of approving or disapproving immigration policies right now as espoused by Donald Trump. I have nothing to do with that. That is totally different. That's from a white perspective. My issues, as Amafika just told you, is strictly from a black perspective, to give you historical data, insights, and knowledges about how you should be to function to take care of your own people. The only relationship that I would have had with Donald Trump is one of the statements he made way back when he was campaigning, when he says that if you vote for me, you black folk, y'all don't have anything. You don't have anything to lose. He was absolutely right. We're on the bottom of the barrel. We've been there. That's why if you look at when you buy that book that Amafika just articulated to you, you buy the Black Reader, then one of the second things that they show you that you are not a permanent underclass in America. You're a permanent underclass, where right now everybody is over you. It breaks down exactly where, as of 2010, exactly where black folk were. That you're a public official underclass in America. Your income is down something like about one half of what it is for Hispanics and Asians. They've been here. 90% of the Hispanics have been here less than 40 years. Their income is twice yours, and you've been here for 500 years. So Amafika is right. You got to understand these issues. I can't say everything to you, explain everything to you in a matter of seconds on every point that you raise and every aspect of it or intricacy of that question.
All right, we can keep rolling. 800-450-7876, line 6. Mr. Pete's calling from Florida. Mr. Pete, you have a question or comment for Dr. Anderson?
Yes. Thanks for taking my call, Brother Carl. Greetings to you too, Dr. Anderson. How you doing today, sir? Let me say it's always an honor and a blessing to speak to you, Dr. Anderson. I've been following you for years, and I just love the work that you're doing, sir. And I have a comment, and let me just say this. I'm the president in South Florida, Fort Pierce, Florida. I'm the president and the founder of a ministry, Black Churches United Corporations of America, Black Economic Empowerment. And its mission is to unite, organize, and mobilize our churches, civic organizations, and the entire community around our economic, political, and cultural interests. And I would like to know what your concept Dr. Anderson, and let me just say this first, though. This corporation believes that there must be a corporation of power. Black churches across this nation must build a corporation of power in every black community across this nation. Every city, every black community, a corporation of power with the mission to create businesses, take ownership and control, and build an economy inside our community. And I would like to know what your concept of that is, because we realize that we don't own or control anything because we have nothing of power inside our community. So we believe, and I'm going to hang up and listen to your answer. We believe that as black people, black churches and the entire community must unite, organize, and mobilize and build a corporation of power in every city, in every black community across this nation with the mission to create businesses, take ownership and control, and build an economy inside the black community. Thank you, sir. God bless.
Well, let me respond very quickly, because Carl's going to hold me to a few seconds on this, but I'm totally 100% supportive of what you're trying to do. And ironically, I tried to spell that out when I talked about the necessity my interest in having a major convention across America. And what you're advocating is more specifically, I tried to do that about 7 years ago. As a matter of fact, I conducted a major program across America trying to invite ministers to do exactly what you're talking about. And I set up workshops in about 5 different cities. That was like New Orleans, or Memphis, Tennessee, Detroit, Michigan, Ohio, where I invited, and Atlanta, Georgia. And we put in, I guess, about over $100,000, where I invited every time about at least 10 ministers, invited them to bring their wives with them. I got to make sure that their round trip airfare was paid for their whole hotels, paid for their food, their services, and the chauffeur systems to bring them to a city. Where I met and I conducted workshops to show them what the problems were and why we needed to practice group economics, rebuild our communities, and function as a team. Racism is a team sport. Either you play as a team, you lose. And the greatest driving force we have is the black religion, the black churches in our neighborhoods. We don't have in the communities of our neighborhoods to bring us together and unite us. And I did that in about 5 or 6 different cities and spent over $100,000 to get black folk to do it. But then I found out later on that none of them were able to do anything because they said that they were scared of the white community, that they did not want to lose friendship by trying to build something for black folk and fall out with the white power structure, political and power and social systems that were in their various communities. I even tried to bring together in Philadelphia to do the same thing.
Yeah, hold that thought right there. We got to take another break. 800-450-7876. Get you on. Speak to the man with a plan, Dr. Claud Anderson. Taking calls next right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And thanks for staying with us, folks. Our guest is one of our power talkers. We call him the man with a plan, Dr. Claud Anderson. The number to call to speak to Dr. Anderson. Put in a question for him because a bunch of folks from all across the country want to speak to Dr. Anderson. 800-450-7876. Before we go back to him, though, let me remind you that coming up in the next few days, you're going to hear from an educator, Griot, another one of our power talkers, Dr. James Small. He's going to join us. And also metaphysician, Dr. Beast. Hey, friends, keep it locked on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL. Another question for Dr. Anderson coming from Sister Sean on line 1, calling from Washington, D.C. Sister Sean, you're on with Dr. Anderson.
Hi, Dr. Anderson. This is Sister Sean.
Hi, how are you?
I'm okay. I met you at Everlasting Life, and I'm also a volunteer with the 1 Million Conscious Black Voters and Contributors, working with Jim and Amafika. And
you were a wonderful person that day.
Oh, thank you. Wanted to let you know that we're starting a study group, and we're actually planning to start this Sunday. And we plan to solicit more volunteers. We hope to live stream it, but once we progress to live streaming, we're going to probably conference call it, and I'll try to get you the information. But what I really wanted to kind of say is that we actually added, as we were working through how we planned the study group, we added a little piece to it, and we said that we were going to dedicate the last half hour of the study group to look into the Indian lawsuit matter and things that we can do to rally behind that. So that's something that I wanted to kind of announce to you. We kind of decided to do that internally, while we have this group composed, that we could also expose what we've learned about the Indian lawsuit and, the next steps or whatever we could do. So I guess my specific question, it'll be Sundays at 3 o'clock. Hopefully, maybe Carl let me get information. But my question is, now that we're starting the studying group, and that we want to incorporate the last half hour to focus on the Indian lawsuit, what specific guidance do you give the group? What should we specifically focus on, and what is our charge?
Well, first of all, make sure you understand the broad history of why I chose the 1866 Indian Treaty. That's what all the lawsuits that I try to bring together is based on laws that exist where black folk are entitled to reparations or compensation or restitution that have been ignored. I have a lot of friends who are heavily into the reparations movement, but they're trying to cut basically on white folks' conscience or commitment to or their spirituality and what they and the emotionalism of it. I stay away from that. The 1866 Indian Treaty was based on the fact that Indians participated in slavery to almost a full degree that whites did. In proportional, comparative terms, they owned as many slaves as whites did. And all these basic tribes, the 5 civilized tribes, were slave owners, slave chasers, or slave holders, and they fought with the South. They signed agreements with the South, the Southern Confederacy, to maintain slavery. And the government had to go in 2 years after the Civil War was over and force them to turn those slaves loose. You all need to know the basis of why I got those lawsuits in there. That's that lawsuit. But I got 2 or 3 other lawsuits pending. One is about the freedmen banks that were robbed, about $57 million. Also the Adams and Otis Treaty, which means black folk basically should have owned most of that land across North Florida, all the way ran from Jacksonville to Texas. I got those lawsuits coming. I got the engineering, the media communication technology lawsuits that have all been drafted up, but I don't have the resource to keep doing it. So what you all need to do is first understand the history of it, some of the lawsuits we're going to be filing, but we have to have money because the legal costs are extremely high for the court costs, the printing costs, and the fees are high. And see, I've spent in the last year, I've spent almost $150,000. Nobody gives me any money to do these things. I just spend it because I love black folk, even though some of them might not be worth a quarter, but I still love them. They rather give their money to a white, put it in a white business, or give it to a white Purple Heart or the Heart Cancer Association. They won't give it to us to help. So then the third thing is to be able to use any kind of media you can publicly to make an issue out of the lawsuits. These Indians right now, 90% are just whites passing as Indians. They're what we call $5 Indians in history. Not really Indians, but they paid $5 to the Dawes Commission back in the 1890s so they can get their names on the Dawes rolls as Indians so they can get all these free benefits, just like these immigrants are doing to make sure black folks get nothing. And I can go on and on, but it's best that I try to talk with you off the radio, and I'll give you all the other suggestions I might have, okay?
And Sister Sean, are you still there? Sister Sean,
yes,
can you give us a phone number? Give us a number if folks want to get more information about the weekend event.
Text me your email address to 202-277-1873. Repeat, 202-277-1873. Email address only because I will not be able to answer the phone. But last time we got a lot of callers from outside of my city. That's why I want to do live stream. We got a lot of interest, Dr. Claud, and I'm not in a powerful position, but I'm not afraid. So I just want to leave you with that.
Well, I love you for it, and I appreciate your being at the last engagement.
All right. Thanks, Sister Sean.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
And I want you to call back on Friday and give that information as well. 800-450-7876 is the number you need to know right now. Speak to Dr. Anderson. Line 2, Latson's calling from the district. Latson, you have a question for Dr. Anderson?
Good evening, Dr. Anderson. Carl. How you doing?
Good evening to you.
Yeah, my brother, I feel your passion. If you didn't have a great love for black folks, you wouldn't be doing this. Like you said, some of them might not be deserving of it, but like Dr. King, you have a confidence for your people, and you know you can't help that because you're moral and you're civilized. But what I want to say is this, Doctor. You know, we're dealing with a demented people. Black people are a demented people. From slavery on up for the last ever since you came over here on the boat. You know, we are a demented people. Thank God somebody like me is self-employed, and most of my family is self-employed people. But what it is, we don't seem to have the wherewithal to
have the institution in us to want to be like some of these other groups. Like you said, the Hispanics, they just got over here. Look what they got their own business. They're turning the money over in the neighborhood. What I'm gonna do is say about a couple things, then I'm gonna shoot a question to you. So that means that we are demented. Because we don't have that in us to want to own. Anytime you go out to a restaurant with your lady, you dress nice and this and that, and you got to go to a white establishment. I mean, the average brother, they wouldn't feel right. Because you want to go to a black place, something that you all own, nice, clean, great, well established.
Right. Listen, put it in a question form for us because we're racing the clock right now.
What I want to say, Dr. Anderson, it's like this. Like I said, we're in other words, somebody like that got to be demented until you don't have that kind of feeling about your race.
Well, let me answer that as quickly as I can because Carl's going to have to go off in a few minutes. First of all, that's because black folk are not only stripped of any opportunity to acquire wealth and resource and power and privilege in this country based on the Constitution itself until black folk go back and force this country to address and correct the aspects of the United States Constitution. And then you can continue to be in the lower class. And also you need to understand that there are two constitutions. The first constitution was in 1789, but they also have a second constitution in 1860. That 1860 constitution was trying to correct the first constitution by giving, and also the Dred Scott decision in 1857, which says black folk have no rights that white people are bound to respect. So you got two constitutions, but nobody ever focused on that. Secondly, is that nobody focuses on redistributing the wealth, but more importantly, and nor trying to correct the social cohesiveness that was wiped out from black folk. And that's why we can't come together. But one of the things I'm going to say to you is that we'll never be able to come together until we understand what other groups already understand when they come here through their culture. Our people are scared. They're frightened. They don't want to. They place more importance. They place more importance on being alive than on the conditions under which they have been forced to live in. And see, in most other countries, that's why we could not win in the Vietnam War. We couldn't win in the Korean War because those people says we would die first before we let you do these kind of things to us. And that's also one of the big reasons why whites around the world hate and despise black folk right now. They hate and despise us because we're weak. They hate and despise us because we're always compromising, acquiescing, and butt shuffling, trying to get along with people and looking for love in all the wrong places rather than standing up as a man and saying, no, I won't take it. Slavery would not have lasted a month if black folk had gotten here and said, no, I'm going to take it, I'll die first before I let you do these kind of additions to me, my children, my family, and my wife. And so that's one of the things I found in Korea. In Korea, and I'm going to close on this statement, that as long as we keep acquiescing and compromising, and that's part of, and a lot of that's being brought about by a lot of our civil rights leaders always want to get along with everybody except their own people. They always want to kiss and hug on everybody, go to everybody else's restaurants, hotels, go to their schools, marry their women. That's a part of our problems. But in Korea, we found out over there, when you go out in the morning, in North Korea, we had over 7,000 POWs because a lot of them just gave up and surrendered and want to get along. And we wound up in a prison POW camp in North Korea and in China. And you can go out in the morning, and every morning, here come the Chinese over the mountains every morning, blowing horns and shooting rockets and firing. And a lot of our soldiers, rather than fighting and firing back, you look behind a tree or in a ditch and say, what are you doing laying in the ditch on the top of your own gun? Why don't you stand up and fight back? And they would say to you like, well, if I got up out of this ditch and I started shooting back at them, that might make them mad. And I don't want to make them angry, but I'm just going to lay here and duck and dodge. You got too many blacks in America going all the way back to slavery, and instead of taking the position that I will die before I let you do certain things to me. And now that blacks have got branded with that name of being slaves, white folks hate you. 88 to 90% of whites across America right now still don't like black folk. They basically hate you for three or four things. One, because you're branded as a descendant of a slave. Two, because your color is different from their color. When they look in the mirror, they don't like the color difference. They hate you for that. Three, they hate you because you're compromising, acquiescing, and they spend all your time trying to get along with other people, going out and fight for other people. You got your civil rights leaders right now rushing down to the border, welcoming all the Hispanic coming across the border to get benefits and privileges and rights and unearned benefits that blacks in this country have never been getting. At the same time, they're running Haitians out of the country and sending them back to Haitians and sending them back out to sea, or won't let them come in here. The immigrants coming to this country for black folk has never been more than 1/2 or 1% coming in this country. But yet black folk want to go save everybody but their own people. Anybody that's that weak that acquiescing, that compromising, and that determined to be loved rather than being respected and appreciated, they are never going to survive. They're not going to survive in this country or any other place on this earth.
All right. Thanks, Lanson. 800-450-7876. Gene's next. And calling from Maryland on line 3. Gene, can you make a question quick for us?
Yes, I'm going to make it real quick. This is a plea. I am in the Washington, D.C. area. Howard University has a major heating problem, and the students aren't able to go back to class because of the freezing temperatures. And I'm just wondering what the black community is going to do about our heat. And I know, yes, money has not been
Gene, I think we're out of time, but I thank you for your plea. Please call back Friday if that situation still exists. Doc, we're running out of time. And tell us again how folks, the phone number for the Powernomics and how people can get the book, and if they want to help out the Harvest Institute.
Right. Okay, thank you, Carl. They can get the books by calling directly to the Powernomics Corporation in Maryland. That number is 301-564-6075. Again, 301-564-6075. And then we got a special packages. One is called the library pack. If you get this library pack, you don't need any other history books about black folk in the country. If you get you get that library pack where you get 5 books that'll tell you everything you need to know. And you get that for $99 by going to the Powernomics.com website and ordering. It's only $99. You can get that. Or you can also, when you're up there, go to the www.harvestinstitute.org and make a contribution to the Harvest Institute that is doing all your fighting for you around this country to politically and economically empower black folk. It's the Harvest Institute and the Powernomics Corporation. Go help us and support us.
Thanks, Doc. We're out of time. Thank you. We're late as usual, folks. But stay strong, stay positive. And we'll see you tomorrow, 4 o'clock, right here on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power.